everybody. My name is Cassie Quistorf, and I'm the director of Klamath Film. And with me today is Ned Thanhouser. Ned is the
Right.
creative mind behind the Ray Tauscher film that you just watched. Ned, thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, thank you, and thanks for screening Ray Tauscher online. I think that people who watch this film will learn that it's more than just a motorcycle film. I mean, it's a story about a man that uh, really grew into his career as a motorcycle racer and became world famous. And in the time when uh, there weren't a lot of Americans on the world circuit, and he put himself out there and set all these records in 1931 and became quite the hero. But he's been forgotten today, and so the purpose of doing this film was to tell his story, as well as bring him back to the forefront in terms of people being aware of his accomplishments.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ned, I love your passion for just finding these kind of unheard stories and bringing them to the forefront and working on your own films and sharing these people's works. So, how did you find this connection with Ray? How did you learn about him?
Well, it's a good story. My wife and I are members of a motorcycle club here in Portland called the Flying 15. And the Flying 15 had a historian who had started research on Ray Tauscher.
Hmm.
And in 2010, he passed away.
Wow.
And my wife and I went over and helped his widow clear out his belongings. And my wife, bless her heart, picked up a banker's box full of Xerox copies and photographs and notes and put it in her office. And it sat there for 10 years.
Wow.
And when the pandemic happened in 2020, we all huddled down. She put this box in front of me and said, "Hey, you might enjoy this." And so I dug through the box and I found all these stories about Ray. I created a timeline, and then I went on to ancestry.com and built a family tree to try to find some relatives. And luckily, I found relatives out in Gresham, and they had a box of original materials, not copies, and his racing vests and scrapbooks and memorabilia that we use in the film. But when we went through the timeline of Ray's life and his accomplishments, it became clear that there's a great story to be told, especially to the motorcycle community. They've really picked up this film. But again, it's got more than motorcycles in it. It's a great story about this man, his life and his loves and his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that the motorcycle community has kind of picked this up. So what has that response been from the motorcycle community? And also how have you kind of combined these two passions of filmmaking and motorcycles?
Well, the motorcycle community has picked this film up in a number of other film festivals in France, in
Oh,
Nice,
wow.
France. It was shown there on the French Riviera Film Festival. It showed in Toronto at the Toronto Motorcycle Film Festival. We went to those, and
Wow.
were able to talk to people and celebrate the film. And it was picked up by some other festivals we weren't able to go to. Rome and Berlin it went to, and it also screened in New York. There's
Hmm.
a New York Film Festival for motorcycles. And but the other part of your question was,
Oh, yeah. How has it been kind of blending these
oh,
two passions?
yeah, yeah. So my wife and I are avid motorcyclists. I no longer mountain climb, so it needed some other risky behavior.
The adrenaline.
Yeah, I had been riding motorcycles. I started in 1970, and so we have 9 motorcycles, pretty crazy, and we ride quite a bit, and so it's nice to tell stories about more than just the motorcycle, about the people that ride them.
Mhm.
And I've done a couple of films. Another one is called "The Monkey and Her Driver,"
Hmm.
which is about 2 women that race sidecars. You have a driver, you have a passenger, and the passenger is called a monkey because they move back and forth across the back of the car as a counterbalance so it doesn't flip over.
Oh, wow.
And that film has shown uh, quite a number of places here in Portland and in Toronto and over in France. So, and it gives us a chance to travel. We like to travel. We're both retired now, so we get to travel more. And yeah, it's a great creative outlet for me to be able to tell these stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So what has your experience been like, just traveling to film festivals and as an independent filmmaker, what do you see kind of the value and importance of film festivals?
Well, I think there's two. I think one is the accolades that you receive. It helps you feel good about the work you're doing, and you're on the right path. So it kind of reinforces that creative aspect. But the other part really is the benefit of seeing and talking to other people and seeing their work and getting a perspective how they approach storytelling. And again, my films are all documentary style, short documentaries. I've done one feature documentary um, that took 3 years to make. Short ones, I mean, like the Ray Tauscher film we did in less than a year, and
Wow.
with my son helped me on that, and he had a lot of value to it. So it really is nice to go to these festivals and talk to people about how they approach it. Plus, it gives you a chance to go travel and see new places and do new things.
Yeah, absolutely. So for Ray's story, kind of from the initial spark that you had to share it, up till now and seeing the finished product and seeing it in the film festivals across the world, what do you hope people gain from it after watching the film?
Well, I think number one that they get a perspective on the history of the people that were doing this activity back in the day. Both, the Ray Tauscher film is set in the 1930s, 20s, and 30s.
Mhm.
And, back in England, when they were racing motorcycles at Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people would show up to watch these people race. Now, they don't get that today.
Right.
You get it with soccer matches, but not with motorcycle racing. But motorcycle racing in Europe is a much more mainstream sport than it is here in the USA. So that's one of the things that really came out that was of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. How neat, Ned. Well, was there anything else you wanted to add about filmmaking or Ray's story or Ranger's story before we wrap up today?
Well, I would encourage anybody that's watching that would like to be a filmmaker or want to tell a story. Um, don't let the intricacies and complexity of having the right equipment slow you down. I've seen people make, and I've made films just using my cell phone.
Yeah.
Uh, and you can get inexpensive editing programs. The key is really in the editing. And I think the main thing that we tell all the filmmakers in the festival that I run: make sure you have a story.
Yeah.
You have all this great technique and all these great camera shots and rack focus and all these kind of technical terms. But what really matters is having a story to tell, having an arc. And if you have a good story, um, your technique will follow.
Yeah, absolutely, Ned. And for those listening, you should definitely listen to Ned because he used to run the Youth Film Festival up in Portland, so he knows what he's talking about. Well, Ned, thank you so much for chatting with us today, and thank you so much for being a part of our film festival. We're so excited to celebrate with you come September.
I look forward to it, and I look forward to seeing everybody else's work as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ned.